Your Future. I'm Ada Harden, Volunteer Resource Specialist for AISD. It's Your Future is a program for AISD students and others who want to learn more about specific career fields. People from all walks of life will be here to share their experiences with you on our program, and we hope that our guests will help you become more aware of what you can do now to plan for the kind of future you want. You know, it's nice to listen to people and how they shaped their lives and how they made it, and listening to these people, we hope will give you a better idea about how to plan for your future. Oh, we have some very special people with us on the show today, and I'm extremely excited about them because they've been lifelong friends of mine. Help me to welcome Andy and Ada Anderson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And from the Anderson Wormley Real Estate and Insurance Company.
Right.
That it? Okay.
Right.
Thank you for coming by and taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us and to share some of your experiences with us so that our children and our students can become more aware of the opportunities that they have in the world of real estate and insurance. Why don't we first talk about, Ada's so active, and the two Adas now, we don't want you to get confused with these two Adas, but Ada's been around and we've been friends for a long time, and I am very active in our community. Why don't we talk about, first off, Ada, some of your experience in regards to your educational background. Why don't you share some of that with us? Where did you attend school and those things?
Well, I'm a graduate of what was at that time Tillotson College. It's now Houston Tillotson College, and where I received a bachelor's, and then I have a master's from the University of Texas in counseling and guidance, and I also have done certified as a librarian from the library school at the University of Texas, and the specific that relates directly to our business, I attended Northwestern University, mortgage banking, finance, and that sort of thing.
Oh.
So that...
You've done a lot of things. We really have. And we're not going to overlook you either. You know. You've been a very inspirational person to me because you've advised me in a lot of different business ventures and those kinds of things. Where were you? Are you originally from Austin?
No, I'm out of Ohio, small town of Sandusky, Ohio. Grew up and was reared there, and my roots are there. And coming to Texas, of course, to teach at, which is now Houston Tillotson College, it was Sam Houston earlier at that time. And basically, my educational background comes out of Ohio State University, which I think is one of the greatest in the country. I also hold a honorary doctor's degree from London College School of Applied Sciences in London, England, and I'm real proud of that. And my dad was an earlier person who was graduated from Benedict College. He was in the building trades industry in South Carolina, and did do building of houses and had meat markets and things of that nature. So I guess I inherited a little bit that from him.
I think that's wonderful, wonderful.
But I'm not going to let him get away with the Ohio State plug. Next to Texas.
Next to Texas.
Next to Texas.
Right. Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful. You mean that you left Ohio, okay, and you came to Austin.
Yes.
Have you ever, did you stay here from then on?
Yes, I stayed until I took time out to go into the service. I mean, for about 3 years, and which was again thoroughly enjoyable because I taught at administrative school most of the time.
Oh, that's great.
That I was in the service as such.
And Ada.
I was just going to say he's almost more of a Texan than I am. Of course, I am a native. As a matter of fact, really the 4th generation to live in Travis County. And except for a short time when we lived in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, we've spent most of our time here.
And you were from a very small community here around Austin. Is that not true?
Pilot Knob, and like other rural communities, you know, there were 3 or 4 families, and that was pretty much it. And of course, that was where my early education was in the school.
And what kind of changes have you witnessed? Because I know that you were on the board for ACC, Austin
Right.
Community College, and I'm interested in knowing what kind of changes that you've seen or you've witnessed since your days in Polynomial, did you go to school in Polynomial, or did you have to transfer into Austin to go to school? I'm interested in that, because I think that brings back a real sense of history, and our young people need to know about that.
Well, my great-grandfather settled in Travis County, and he and his adult sons donated land for a church, a school, and a cemetery. And they hired a teacher and a preacher. And that was the school that I attended as a youngster, as an elementary kid. And on graduating from that, I came to Anderson High School at the ripe old age of 11 and entered Anderson High School. And then from Anderson into, but there have been lots of changes. There was a period when my grandfather put his children in boarding school at Tillotson, because that was the next step after they left the Pilot Knob School.
Yeah, and I think that's so wonderful, because like I said before, I think that some of those kinds of experiences need to be pointed out, and relations to what our children have now and the advantages that they have that we didn't have back then.
It's a very, very different level of experiences that are available to youngsters now. When I was a student at Anderson High School, for example, there was no typing available. I mean, just to give you a basic.
Right.
And so there have been so many changes. Now we're into computers and all the other wonderful things that certainly broaden the background of our young people.
And you would basically then support young people being a little more concerned about and take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to them.
Oh, I would say take advantage of as many experiences as possible. The wider the range, the broader the range, the more exciting your life is.
That's right.
Your world grows when
That's
you
right.
allow it to grow. And don't pass up a single opportunity, because there's so many more you can see tomorrow. Don't ever think you're finished.
And every experience is going to eventually bring back the opportunity to use that particular experience.
Well, as some people say, that no knowledge is ever lost. It always comes into play at some point along the way.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think that's wonderful, and I subscribe to the philosophy, you know what I mean, that knowledge is very important. I add to that a little of my own experience, I mean, and thinking back when my dad moved us from a small town in Greenville, South Carolina, to Ohio to get an education. And I think I was around 5 or something years old at that time. But the one thing that I got out of growing up in Sandusky, Ohio, was that I had an opportunity to participate in the church activities. And that really was the center of our community then. And you could get to be in the BYPU or BTU now, you know what I mean, and then you could go to Sunday school and be a part of it. And the real important thing was there that the laymen of the church, or the most men and women, had an opportunity to be head of the organization. And that gave me a chance to stand on my own feet and learn how to talk and to speak. And at one time I became the vice president of the BTU of the state of Ohio. And that, of course, was quite a revealing experience. And I think that's very important. I think also that I had an opportunity to work. My dad died when I was real young, so consequently we all had to go to work. And in working, I had the opportunity of working in a barber shop, shining shoes. And in that barber shop is one of the most prestigious barber shops we had in Sandusky, Ohio. And as a result of that, of course, I got to know many people there, you know, and the Board of Regents happened to be come and get his haircut there, yes, get his shoes shined. So that gave me an opportunity then to go to Ohio State University. But one of the things I made up my mind about, and that was, as those boys came back, the white boys from Ohio State University, the other university, and I was shining their shoes, I said to myself, I'm not going to be shining shoes all the time. And I think that's very important. And it gave me an inspiration to move on. And that's the type of thing. And I've always been the type of person that sought out people who were doing things. And then I picked their brain. And then that was the best way in the world to learn. That was a learning process. And then I learned how to listen, because most people don't know how to listen very well. And then after you get their attention, then shut up and listen. I mean, so that was very effective for me and helped me along the way. And I say that to young people: surround yourself with people who have been the movers and shakers, and then learn from them and take off.
Wonderful. I think that's wonderful, and I definitely agree, because it depends upon the atmosphere by which you are surrounded, basically, as to what you will turn out to be. And I love that philosophy. No wonder I always come to you when I have a problem and talk to you, because your philosophy is just wonderful about young people and how they can progress in this world. Tell me, did either of you have a role model? Because I think role models are so important for young people to have. I know you and Ada are mine.
Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Along with a preacher woman.
Yes, I had any number of role models. I would have to go back to the first role model was as I worked in that barber shop that I talked about. The fellow who was upstairs had an office. His name was French, and a Mr. French, and he was in the real estate business.
Oh.
So I sort of listened. I didn't know at that particular time, you know what I mean, that I was doing what was necessary to get some information about it, but I did. And as a result of that, I think I decided then maybe one of the days I'd get into real estate as such. Also, my other role model was an H.W. Soin out of Kansas City, Kansas, and also Missouri, two twin cities as such. So as I worked with the United Negro College Fund, I was sent up from Houston-Tillerson College at that time to work with the United Negro College in Kansas College Fund in Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. So I got to know Mr. Soin was the vice chairman of the Drive. And at that time, he was establishing a bank, and it's Douglas State Bank, and they got it going at that particular time. And then also, he already had the insurance set up and the real estate set up.
Oh.
So we model our business strictly after him. So that's one of my role models as such, H.W. Soin.
Do you have the same one, Ada, or you have? I know we have another Ada. Ada. Simon.
Right.
Yeah, and she's another one of us Adas.
That's right. There are a lot of. I was just going to make one comment that you were a real brave soul when you asked us both on at the same time. As much as we both talk.
But that's okay.
Thinking of the role models, my aunts were teachers. And I was very close to them and lived around them. In fact, when I left, I guess I didn't tell you that, when I left Pilot Knob to go to Anderson High School, I lived with one of my aunts. And in the course of time, I lived with 3 different aunts by the time I graduated from college. But that was an incentive on the educational end. But my mother provided an excellent role model in terms of leadership and involvement.
Yes.
And she was president of the PTA and superintendent of the Sunday school and president of the home demonstration agent, in spite of the fact that she reared 9 children.
Oh.
And so there was always time to do other things, and she was a very involved and a very caring person. And I think I just picked up a lot of that interest in community kinds of participation. So much of that is absorbed. You don't even realize it, you know. It's
right. And how important
subconsciously.
Right. How important do you think that that kind of experience that you had with your mother has played in the success that you have today? Because, you know, a lot of times we don't have that kind of support from family. And what would be your advice then to people or youngsters or even parents?
Well, I think particularly to parents that their own personal involvement has a tremendous influence on their children, a lot more than they may realize at the particular time, and perhaps more than the young people realize. But as I watch my daughter, for example, or watch our children, both of them for that matter, but I noticed that as the older she gets, the more she does of the same kinds of things that I've done, and it has made me more conscious of how much I was really influenced by my mother in that regard without really realizing it. And I guess the other thing along that line too, we were talking about role models, but when we say to parents that you do need to set a good example, but I'd like to add another dimension to that that I think is extremely important, and that is to help young people feel a sense of high self-esteem, to value themselves, and that attitude that is developed just has so much to do with success and with happiness and comfort, and how you feel about yourself is just paramount to success.
I think so too, and I think that's the key. You know, young people need to feel good about themselves, and we are the ones that are responsible for helping make them feel good about themselves.
Well, one of the things that I think, as I reflect, that helps a great deal is doing volunteer work and doing things for other people, so you're doing it outside of yourself, and you feel good about what you've done, and you don't have time to feel inadequate.
That's true.
Yes, I think you lose yourself into something bigger than yourself. I think that's very important. I mean, and consequently, you won't be dwelling then on the little things in life or the negative things in life. I think you've got to keep a positive attitude about things. And I find that this is one of the things that people don't do. They dwell too much on the negative types of things. And I highly recommend it. Be positive, I mean, and think big.
And like we said before, use every experience as a building, you know.
That's right.
Step, because by the fact that you started, you know, shining shoes in this prestigious barbershop, look what it led you to today, and that was an opportunity, one that was used and taken in a positive manner. See.
Very true. I think also we must.
We're 5 foot.
Yeah, I think also you've got to. We've got to learn how to be producers. And we've heard this thing that most of us are consumers and not producers. And I think once we get that philosophy in mind, I mean, and move into the production area. And I think it's very important. For example, we went out and established a life insurance company back in 1964. Oh. And it was a National Protestant Brotherhood. It's now the Christian Brotherhood. We sold it about 4 years ago. And it's a multi-million-dollar company now. You see what I mean? I'm still part of the company insofar as, not ownership, but part of the company insofar as on the board and so on. And so those are the type of things. We went out and established the insurance agency, you see what I mean? Established the real estate agency. That's producing something as such. It's pretty easy to go out and work for somebody, you know what I mean? But to be on your own, which is one of the toughest that I know of. And I want to pay you a compliment there, because I remember when you came in and talked to me about soda water, you know what I mean, drink and so on. And you worked at it, I mean, and trying to make it go. You're marketing your product, you see, and those are the type of things we must learn in today's market as such.
I think that's great. Yeah.
I'd like to add something else, Ada, that I think is really critical to success and critical to feeling happy about yourself, and that is to stay busy enough in helping other people in ways that you never develop that jealousy and envy that is so debilitating, and so that you can be happy every time you see someone else succeed. And if you're part of that success, you can feel successful too.
Right.
And I think one of the worst things in the world that does happen to some of our young people, and that's, well, it's at all ages, but the jealousy and envy takes up so much energy, takes so much energy away from the positive and constructive kinds of things that you could be doing.
Right. Absolutely, I definitely agree. And that even starts even at the early stages in school, competition. You know, we have some kids who make excellent grades, but then there are other kids who don't make as good a grades, and then they, you know, tend to be jealous of those who can.
Well, I think parents have a strong role to play in helping young people not develop,
right,
or to avoid that sort of thing. I think parents sometimes are guilty of making some snide remarks about someone who succeeded. Says, oh, that's because he's Mr. So-and-so's daughter, or those kinds of things, and without realizing how destructive it is to their own children.
That's true.
I think also we've got to tell the youth to start helping chart the future.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be a part of what the future is going to be. And in order to be, for example, today, we need to be thinking about robotics. We need to be doing something about it because they're going to play a tremendous part. They're already here as such. And I'm real proud of this because the family, again, we've set up in Atlanta, Georgia, the American Computer Service Center. That's a third-party maintenance of computers, you know, fixing and repairing computers. Because everybody knows, as said a moment ago, I think by Ada there, that the computer world is here.
Right.
And you don't know how to work them, and I don't. But very important.
Well, it's not too late for you to learn.
I don't know. I sometimes wonder about that.
I think he's resisting it like I am.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not a matter of not being able to learn. It's just that you probably haven't had time to sit down and do it because I know how busy you are. That's right. When you don't take the time to do that. We're not fussing at you. Listen, do you know our time is getting almost up? I can't believe it because we have so many things we need to talk about. We've talked about your role model and we've talked about your business and all that. And I would like for you to emphasize a little of the volunteer work that you do because I know Ada is just off into volunteering all the time, different segments.
We both are, for that matter.
Yeah, tell me about some of the volunteer
The things
work.
that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, okay, that'll work.
Okay. Well, I am on Lagoon Gloria Museum Board of Trustees and the Austin Lyric Opera. And that's a newer venture and really exciting. And incidentally, Romeo and Juliet is coming up right away, so we'd like to encourage you to come and enjoy the opera in Austin.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm still involved with the Foundation St. David's Hospital, and we also have some exciting things happening there. So we're involved in a lot of things that are...
And Annie Mae is a personal friend of yours.
Right,
and we're going to be doing a stage production at St. Edward's soon.
And then one of the other things that I devote a lot of time to is serving the advisory board of the College of Education, University of Texas. And so we've been trying to get some more people into teaching, Ada.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of that. You're aware, but you were part of a program we had in June. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And I understand that tell me about your Mason.
Well, the Masonic group, we're working, trying to get involved into the child pregnancies, and we're working on AIDS and those kind of things across the state of Texas through our local units as such, Masonically as such, and Eastern Starly as such. And those things are beginning to take off. It takes a lot of work though, and we're putting emphasis on youth and getting them involved. We have a tremendous scholarship program. We give about 30 scholarships a year for the Masonic and Eastern Star groups to our young people, and it's not confined either to our own membership.
Oh, that's good.
It's confined to people outside also.
I think that's wonderful. What are some of the specific things you're doing about the aid program?
Well, we're bringing in people to talk in the various chapters and the various lodges to tell us about aid and what we can do. And then we set up a core group within our own organization to work with the particular organizations in the communities that are doing something in that area about it.
I think that's wonderful.
Let me add something in regard to the Eastern Stars and the Masons. They're involved in the Adopt a School program. I thought that might interest you across the state.
Yes.
Right. We were just in Waco and visited with a group that is getting involved there in the Adopt a School program.
That's wonderful.
And drug abuse, and they've been involved in a lot of the current kinds of things that our young people kind of get caught up in.
I think that's great, the way that you're putting something back in the community by your volunteering and all those things. I think it's wonderful, and I want to commend both of you for a great job. I love both of you.
Thank you.
It's mutual, Ada.
So good. And I suspect that not only do you advise me, but you advise people all the time, you know, about what to do and how to go about, you know, a business deal or whatever. I want to just ask you, what is it like today versus when you first started into business? How many years ago was it?
Oh, it's been about 36 or
36 years or something like that. What have you seen, what kind of changes have you seen in regards to the real estate? Yeah, briefly.
Well, we used to have 95% of the market, and now we only have about 2% of the market.
Oh,
see,
why?
You mean the black market?
Black market.
The black
yeah,
market.
Yeah, black market.
Why is
Well,
that?
because of segregation was high, and of course the whites didn't bother with us then, you know what I mean? So we got 95% of it then. But now, of course, competition is very keen.
Yeah, and do you think that that's basically too, because there are people moving everywhere?
Oh, surely,
moving all over
that's
town.
very true, and it's true that they began to find out there's money in black folk too,
I see.
because our economic conditions have improved
They're
tremendously.
changing. Okay.
But that goes both ways because we serve all people too.
Yeah.
We don't confine our business to black client customers. So it works both ways, and I don't think that the business has suffered any. As a matter of fact, I think it's better that we do operate in the total market, and it's a lot more fun.
And then what would be your advice then to youngsters or not so youngsters who might be interested in going into the real estate area as a career? How would you advise them?
I would advise them to go to the University of Texas or some other university that has a course in real estate, gives a degree in real estate, take the course and learn.
Ada?
Well, I would say get a broad, basic education and then proceed with his advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely essential that you have the training. People have a tendency to think that they know everything about nutrition and real estate by talking to their friends. And I'll assure you, you do need to have some formal training on both to be well informed.
I think so too. It's very, very important because there are some things in the formal training area that you have
That's
to
right.
know, because
That's
if you
right.
don't, you'll fall into a hole and you'll never come out. Well, listen, I want to say thank you so very much to both of you for coming and being with us here today. And I know that our students have benefited by your being here. We want to remind the students that listening to Andy and Ada Anderson has been a wonderful experience for me. I hope it has been for you too, but you have to remember what they said. It's like it's hard work. Sometimes you have to work hours and hours. I know, don't you? But it's worth it because it's your future. Thank you. And thank you.
Very good. Thank you for inviting us. You got to be invited first.